Hi, Alice.
Hi.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have you here. We've literally just been chatting for about 15 minutes.
We have. And also, this is the most comfortable, coziest podcast I think I've ever done.
Literally, you get out of bed in the morning, you go and get your glam done, and you come straight back into bed. Feeling very relaxed, very cozy. What have you been up to this morning? Was it a far journey?
No, we came from London on the train.
Okay.
Not too bad.
Quick 2 hour.
Actually, do you know what? It's not the first time I've been to Manchester. And weirdly, when I was on tour, I stayed like 2 minutes away from here.
Did you?
Yeah, in like a flat. Just by...
Wait, this is asking you now. Now I'm really asking.
This is Ancoats, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 2 minutes down the road. I literally drove past it when we were on the way.
I feel like no one ever knows where we are. Like no one knows.
But I was like, oh, memories.
There you go, bringing you back.
I know.
Well, it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you.
You're a PT, writer, fitness and lifestyle influencer, known as one of the most recognisable voices in the world for fitness and lifestyle.
Wow.
That's a lot of intros there. Big intro.
Yeah.
You've done a lot. And only 25.
26.
Oh, okay, 26. Still only 26. You've done a hell of a lot to be 26 years old. Tell me how your journey kind of started with lifestyle and fitness.
Oh, so like I was just saying, I trained as a dancer and in musical theatre.
Yeah.
So that was like my background. And while I was at college, like it's a very sort of aesthetically driven environment. And I got to the point where I was like, right, I feel like, you know, I'm spending every day in a leotard and pink tights and looking in a mirror with like 50 other girls. And I just
thought, really what it's like as well?
Yeah. To ballet every day in like
really?
Yeah. And so I developed definitely what I can recognize now as being really unhappy in my body. Not that there was anything wrong with it, but I just had like this feeling of, you know, I felt really unhealthy. I definitely lived that student lifestyle where I was like going out and partying and drinking and whatever. And so I got to my second year and I decided that if I was going to take this really serious as a career, which I wanted to, and I wanted to kind of go really far with it, I needed to start readdressing my health and my fitness and making sure that that was the best it could be to kind of get as far in that career as I wanted to. So, from there, I used Instagram. I created this like private page and I was posting recipes and just kind of using it more as like a food diary.
Yeah.
And then as the page started to grow and I started to engage with other people that were doing similar things to what I was doing, I decided to make it public and it was called Clean Eating Alice.
Yes.
And so it was just kind of like more, it was more food. So I would do a lot of like recipes and things that I was eating, started to do the fitness. And then in my third year of uni, I got an agent and then I got a job and I left early, went on tour with Annie, the musical, and did that for a year. And when I got to the end of that contract, I was like, you know, I had all these kind of offers coming in. I was writing a book at the time as well. And so I decided that I wanted to do something that would be able to sustain me for a couple of years, maybe while I focused on all the social media stuff. And then I might be able to go back to theatre after that. So I did my PT qualification, and then when I finished the show I got a job in a gym in London and just started working. And I didn't think I'd love it as much as I did, but as soon as I started it was like really a fulfilling job and something that like I said, I didn't think I'd enjoy it as much as I did. And as soon as I started to take on clients and see the difference in them, see what I was able to bring to them in terms of confidence and strength, it was just kind of I haven't really looked back. So, I've developed all my skill set. I now work as a PT at a gym called Third Space in London. Wow. I write a column for Women's Health magazine. And I try and make sure that, like you said, my content is really educational more than anything. I think fitness has taken lots of different trajectories over the last couple of years. And mine has certainly been of the kind of trajectory that I want to make it sure that it's got education at the forefront and that people can come and learn something, that it's always, you know, focused on form and giving people inspiration and motivation, but not telling them exactly what to do. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people with fitness think that like you have to follow a very specific plan. There's one way, and there's not. And there's so much nuance in fitness. So I think I tried to just provide that sort of inspiration that people can then apply that to their own workout routines or putting it into their exercise routine that they enjoy. That's kind of how I've got to where I am now.
I mean, you're doing a lot and there's a lot to talk about there, but I want to know first of all, so you've gone from being in college and gone from being in university was it strictly dance or was it like performing arts?
No, it was musical theatre. So
musical theatre. What did your family or your friends think when you made the switch from, I guess, being a promising musical theatre student to what you're doing now, which is obviously incredible, but you don't know at the time what you're changing, what you're going into. What did they think?
I think it's really tricky because thankfully, like my family's always supported me in whatever I've wanted to do. Even when I went to go and study musical theatre, none of my friends at my school went to do that. Like they all went to university and got like a proper degree. I was the only one who, and actually I had applied to go to university because I thought that was what I had to do and what everyone did. But always in the back of my mind, I had this niggling feeling that I wasn't pursuing what I really loved and what I really wanted to do. And so at the time, I remember it was like only a couple of weeks away from taking my place at uni, and I just turned around to my mum and I was like, I can't do this. Like I'm not happy, and it's not what I want to do. And my parents have always been so supportive. And my mum said, look, if that's the case, fine. Like, don't go. Take a year out, get a job, earn some money, and audition and see how you go. Yeah. So I did. And same again, like when I got to the end of my first contract, my parents have always been so supportive of me just pursuing something that I enjoy. And obviously they could see that things were taking off. I'd had a book deal, and my book deal was a 2-book deal. So they knew that there was a second book to come. And to be totally honest, I was really burned out by the end of the show anyway. You know, I was like doing 8 shows a week, trying to juggle writing a book and traveling all over the country.
How have you even done that?
So it was a lot. And I was only 22.
Yes, so
young. I was really young. And so yeah, I think actually they really supported me taking time out. And actually like what I ended up doing was putting all of my energies into education and retraining as a personal trainer, which obviously has value. And so yeah, I'm thankful that they've always been really supportive of me going after whatever it is that I want to do. And I think that's like thankfully meant that like even throughout the last couple of years, like it's not always been easy, but I've known that I've got that support network that I can fall back on.
So lucky to have that. It's so important, definitely, to have that support. Now, you spoke a lot about your recipes being the first kind of content that you created on Clean Eating Alice. How did you
say they're recipes as well? They really weren't.
Well, they're not. This is what I'm interested in. Like, how do you make how do you make the switch from being a student that's eating, like, if I think back to when I was in uni, my signature dish I think was beans and cheese and sausages, like the Heinz ones on toast.
That's not even as bad as mine.
Is it not?
I would have.
What was yours?
So I remember coming home from college one night and my friends were cooking dinner and I literally got a giant pack of Ryvita and a tub of butter, and I literally just had butter on crackers, and I think I ate about 3/4 of the pack, and that was my dinner.
See, when you started saying Ryvitas, I thought, wait, she was even healthy when she wasn't healthy. I thought you were going to say like with avocado, but butter.
No, this much butter.
Is it
on
nice?
Each one. Yeah,
I feel like I should try that snack. I've never tried butter with
But honestly, that like it was just I was so misguided, and the thing is that like. It's also like that's so like within the context of what I thought I was trying to do, because my perception of health was like Ryvita, but then I put tons of butter in it. But also like I would be living this lifestyle of during the week, like essentially starving myself and trying to eat as little as possible, then going out on the weekend, boozing, coming home and having a Domino's pizza, and then going to the student shop and buying about 5 packs of sweets. Like that was, and then then you go back to the cycle again on Monday. Yeah. And it's so damaging. And like, I don't even think I'd realized how that cycle had got so bad. So actually, like when I started doing the recipes and stuff, yes, okay, it wasn't recipes as you and I would probably know them with like more than 3 ingredients, but like having...
I'd call it a recipe.
But having like chicken breast, broccoli, sweet potato, like it was, I was starting, and as a girl who could barely even boil an egg before I went to uni,
really?
Like, I was starting to learn how to properly cook. Wow. So yeah, it was a journey, and you know, like I think that the interesting thing is, you know, social media was in its infancy at that point, and so it was much easier to grow a following and to engage with other people and to see what other people were doing. So I was really at a time where no one was really doing what I was doing, and even though it was basic it was like something that people clearly found interesting, and as my body changed and my mindset and everything else, they obviously kind of wanted to follow that journey even more. So, And
I guess you were just learning along the way as well.
Yeah, definitely. And it was authentic, you know, that's what
exactly.
people say they want.
Yeah, definitely. And you've spoken a lot about, so your fitness journey, weights being a big part of that. Now, how was it when you first started out going into the gym, picking up weights? What was people's opinions? Did they have any tips for you? Were people wanting to get involved, like showing you how to lift? Or did you just have that confidence straight away to be? Because a lot of girls talk about how intimidated they are when they walk into a gym, especially when it comes to something like weights.
And I think it's so valid. Like, I definitely was intimidated in the first couple of sessions. And I remember going to, like, I think it was Pure Gym in Sidcup.
Oh, we've all been a Pure Gym.
Pure
I've
Gym
not been in a
Sidcup.
while.
And I remember, or maybe even Better Gym, one of those.
Yeah.
But I remember going in, and the weight section, especially 4 years ago, like, we've come a long way in terms of equality within the gym space. But I think 4 years ago, it was really unheard of to see a woman like lifting weights in the weight section. And I remember going in and you know, I would do the very, very most basic lifts, and I was just trying to get a good foundation of strength, and I kind of had a rough idea of what I was doing, but nowhere near what I do now. But I think ultimately I knew, and I'd always said to myself, like, I'm the kind of person that the biggest motivation for me is to prove other people wrong.
Yeah.
That for me is like a red flag to a bull, or whatever the saying is. I can't remember. But I think it's
We're going to go with that. Red flag. It makes sense. We all get that.
But anyway, so I literally, for me, the fact that there were people there that didn't want me to be in there was like, right, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to show them. I'm going to lift heavy weights, and I'm going to show you that I am really strong, and I don't care what you think. And so that was really empowering. And actually, the more I went, the more people were like, you know, it just became the norm. And then I would see other women in the weight section, and like, not to say that I carved a path for them, but it really felt like that the tide was turning, and that people were kind of seeing that they were becoming much less territorial with the gym space, shall we say, because that definitely used to be what would happen. And I absolutely loved it, and I'm sure there were many mistakes that I made, and I look back and cringe at some of the stuff that I would do. But at the end of the day, it got me to where I am, and it was a journey, and we've all got to start somewhere as well. You know, that's why I say to all of my new clients that come to me and they're really nervous, and I say, do you know what, I was a beginner once, I made loads of mistakes, and I had terrible form, but look where I am now. Like, it takes time, no one's an expert overnight, so you've just got to have patience and kind of go with it.
You are living proof that you can start at the beginning and you can come to exactly where you are now, which is incredible.
Exactly.
What were your fitness goals when you first stepped into that gym and you're like, right, what was your goal in your mindset? Did you have a certain way you wanted to look? Was it all about health?
Yeah, and I think it's different, because now I think about it and I'm like, my sole goal was to basically lose weight, which, would I have that as a goal now? Probably not, no. But that's where I was at. And I think it's really important to be honest about that as well, because, you know, times change, and, you know, now I would very much focus on that less. But at the time, that was my absolute goal. And yes, I achieved it. And I think even that was like a whole journey thing. I hate using that word so much because it is really cringy, but it kind of was, because like, I lost loads of weight, and I restricted what I ate, and I lost my personality and my lifestyle and my social life. And I kind of woke up one day and was like, what the hell am I doing? And that in itself is a journey, because I think loads of us have done that, where, you know, you sort of go so far down a diet, and then you start to go a little bit more and a little bit more. And then you go so far that you suddenly think, oh my God, how the hell have I got this far? And I've dropped so many things along the way. And it's often really difficult, because you don't quite realize that you're going so far down that path. But thankfully I did. And it was really sort of in the last 2 years that I've had a bit of a wake up call and been like, what do I really want out of life? What really is health? I think that's really important. Like, you raised that earlier, and I think that's a really important question. Is I sort of began to appreciate that health wasn't being a skinny size 6. Actually, there are so many more things that go into being healthy that I was completely negating all over kind of just trying to be thin. And I think it's a complicated issue, because I think there are many reasons why we all aspire to be thin, and I think it's a whole nother topic.
It is, definitely.
But it was definitely my goal, and I've really had to kind of check myself on that over the last 2 years and really work back from where I was. And thankfully I feel like now, you know, I've talked about having a good support network, and also I feel like I am in probably the healthiest place I ever have been with my approach to food and exercise and whatever. But it was a difficult one, and I think it's one that I've had to play out like quite publicly as well. So it's been hard in the sense that, like, for some people, they might have done that and never had to share their experience. I've had to do it all online. And I say I've had to. I haven't had to. Obviously, no one's got a gun to my head saying you have to share this. But I guess I've seen the importance of sharing that, because I'm sure that it's a story many people can relate to. So yes, I did diet and lose loads of weight, but actually having come off the back of that, I think actually what's more important is sharing how I've worked back from there. And so I think that the last 2 years have been tough, and it's been difficult because you have people that will question, oh, but you said this and now you think this, and it's like, well, yeah,
Times change kind of thing.
Exactly. And we all change, and we all learn, and we all grow, and actually we all make mistakes as well. And I think the best thing that you can do if ever you've made a mistake is to hold your hands up and say, do you know what, I did say that, I absolutely did, and this is why it was wrong, and I'm sorry. And I think so I've tried to really kind of make sure that I have focused on that over the last few years.
Before we talk a bit more about clean eating, Alice, and kind of the journey from there to where you are now, interestingly, you just said how you'd kind of got to a certain point or level with your fitness and your lifestyle, and you realised it wasn't where you wanted to go. So maybe that being slim was your determination then. How did you realise? What was the realisation? Was there a pinnacle point in your life where you said you woke up one day?
Yeah, I think it was definitely to do with the social side of it. I would be getting invited to dinners. I would be getting invited out with my friends.
Right.
And I would always have in the back of my head, oh God, but if I go out, I'll be eating, rubbish food, or I'll be drinking. And I started to really, I lived on my own for a year, and I thought that I wanted to live on my own. I thought, oh my God, the dream is to live on your own in your own flat and have your own space. And then when I did, I realised that actually I was so lonely.
Really?
And I really felt, it was probably the worst year that I've ever felt in terms of my mental health. I felt so alone. I was living in London. I was with my boyfriend at the time, but he was obviously not living with me. Right. So I'd only see him occasionally when we could. And yeah, I just felt like I'd not hit rock bottom, but I got to a point where I was like, I have to change something because I feel really isolated and alone. And I know that a lot of that has come from my fear of a lot of stuff. And so, yeah, that was, I guess, my kind of light bulb moment.
So is it like a control thing, do you think? So that you were living on your own and you're kind of controlling the way you're eating, controlling the way you're working out? Or?
And also, I think that's so right. And also, like, in my head, my lifestyle was 100% like the healthiest way you could live. But actually it wasn't. And I think it's recognizing that, and going back to what you were saying, like, I thought health looked a certain way. I thought it was eating really well and going to the gym 6 times a week, and that I had to stick to that plan, and that if I deviated from that, it was like, oh God, the world's going to end, or like something's going to happen. And like, unfortunately, it took like a while for me to realize that absolutely wasn't the case, and that's really not a healthy way to be. So yeah.
But so you had your page as Clean Eating Alice, and then there was a change. You changed it to what you are now, Alice Living.
Yeah.
So what made that change? Where did that come from?
I think it's just as I evolved. Like, I started the page, I always liken it to when you make like your first email address.
Yeah.
And when I made the page,
talk about a few of those.
Yeah. And I just never thought that it was going to be anything.
Yeah.
I just thought it was going to be, a little thing that I'd set up, and I might have a few followers, but that was it. So I never envisaged it growing to what it was. And I think I got to the point where I was, I felt like I'd grown and evolved a lot, and I didn't feel like Clean Eating Alice encapsulated what I was doing.
Yeah.
I also think the name that I chose wasn't a great one. It was like, off the top of my head, what do I want to do with my page? Oh, I know, I'm going to call it Clean Eating Alice. But actually, like, clean eating became a big umbrella term for lots of like very kind of contentious and damaging ways of eating, telling people to restrict their food groups, and eating in just a generally very restrictive way, and making people fearful of food as well. And I really recognized the issue, and I didn't want to contribute to that any more than I maybe had. So there came to the point where I was like, I need to distance myself from that name and that kind of that world. And so I changed it, and I've never looked back. I think it's the most positive thing I've done. And thankfully I've then come into a new chapter with everything that I've been doing, and really been able to make positive change.
There was a huge backlash against clean eating and the term and the usage of that on social media. And I think there was a point when there was a person called Blonde Vegan, and her hair started falling out.
Oh my God.
And basically she had to completely change the way she ate and change the way she spoke online, and particularly on Instagram, because what she was living by obviously wasn't working for her. I guess you hadn't heard of this girl. I wonder whether this had an impact on you at all. I mean, she's one example, because there was a lot, like you've mentioned, there was a big backlash against clean eating. Did you feel an impact from this towards you?
Of course. And I think it's really difficult because, yes, absolutely. And it was really hard because obviously I never set out with intentions of ever causing damage to anyone or or having the impact that I did. And I think I got lumped together with a big group of kind of people that were all doing different things. Like I said, I think it's an umbrella term. I think there's lots of different things within that. But something that I do stick to is that I never really felt like I went down the really restrictive route of telling people to cut things out. You know, I still eat meat and dairy and I'm not vegan or whatever. But yeah, I think it's a really difficult one. And I absolutely hold my hands up and say, for a time, I think like clean eating is rightfully wrong. And I don't think that it has a place. My association to it was purely that at the time it's what I chose as my name.
It was your name,
and
not actually the beliefs or anything.
Exactly. And so when it started to get negative press and whatever, I obviously felt quite personally attacked, and you know, I was lumped together with a lot of those people, and it was really tough because I was really young. I remember being on holiday with one of my friends in Greece, and we were on like a press trip, and I remember seeing a Daily Mail article where I'd basically been lumped together with a load of other people and, you know, really like vilified and just like sobbing for like days just because I felt like I just didn't know what to do. Like, if you're someone who's never had a public profile, never been in the press, like kind of just done this stuff online, and yes, you've got some success from it, but suddenly you're on the Daily Mail being like, look how awful this person is and what she's doing. It's really like hurtful and like quite difficult to deal with at that age, and especially because I was away, so I wasn't with my family or anything like that, and you're not able to rationalize it at all. To me, I was like, oh my god, that's it, I'm done. Like, I'm never gonna be able to go out again. Like, I'm never gonna be able to walk down the street or whatever. So yeah, it was really hard, but I think, like I said before, you can all make mistakes, and we are all messy and flawed, and we all do silly things, and if anything, I'm just grateful that I have had the ability to right my wrongs and to be able to come back from whatever I have, from whatever I did then, to be able to show, I guess, where I am now.
I think it's important to say here, though, it wasn't what you did.
No.
I think it was obviously something that happened within the industry, and like you say, you kind of got taken in with that as well.
Yeah.
But talking on, you know, you said you were so young then. Do you think that social media and mental health is a huge thing?
Yeah, I do. And I've definitely seen both sides of it. Like, I think there are parts of it that are great. And I still think that, you know, I've met lots of my close friends through social media, and I think it can be amazing. But yeah, I absolutely appreciate that there is lots of parts of social media that aren't great. And it can be really tricky. And I think it's difficult because, you know, even recently there was someone that made a comment to me about how, you know, there are so many great things that we get from social media, you know, like trips and, you know, press gifts and things like that. And yes, it is great, and it always looks great fun, and everyone's always smiling and happy, but it is tricky behind the scenes things, I think, sometimes. And no, it's not the most difficult job in the world. I'm not going to pretend that it is, but it does come with its challenges, as with any other job in you know, in life. And you know, sometimes I think what's particularly difficult is you are just one person and it's you. So if someone criticizes your brand, for example, that's not you, that's your brand, and you're able to step back from that and be able to dissociate yourself from that criticism. When someone criticizes you as a person on social media, it feels so personal, and it's really difficult to sometimes be able to rationalize why people are being so nasty. And, you know, I don't get it that badly. You know, I've had a few really nasty trolls in the past, but nothing like too major. And I've always been able to lean on those around me and kind of laugh it off most of the time. But I do think that that's one of the areas of social media which needs more regulation and can be really challenging for someone that uses it in the way that I do. And I think just generally, like, it's a tricky world in terms of constant comparison. You know, this idea that we feel as though we have to be like other people or replicate how other people live or how they look or how they dress. I think one of the beauties in life, and something that I learned actually from my theatre days, was like, there is so much beauty and uniqueness. Like, that's what makes you so special. You know, like, I could go to an audition and I might not be the most talented or the most, you know, beautiful or whatever, but I was unique and I was me. And if I got the job, it was because I was me, or if I didn't, it's because I wasn't what they were looking for. And I think in life we need to realize that like, and celebrate uniqueness more than ever, because it's really difficult for I feel for like kids growing up now that like with,
I do.
you know, social media was only really just starting when I was at school, so we had like MySpace and Bebo and all that kind of stuff, but it's never on the level.
So funny, a northerner calls it Bebo.
Oh,
Well, I call it
really?
Bebo. So when people say Bebo, I'm like Bebo. Yeah.
Oh,
You had
yeah.
your top friends.
Yeah, but it was never really
changed
that.
daily.
It was never really
wasn't
that
deep.
like deep. Whereas
Yeah.
now you know, bullying doesn't stop in the classroom. It never stops. And I've heard horror stories about like WhatsApp groups and like really nasty stuff. And I just think, I just don't envy kids these days. So I think, yes, it can be really challenging for mental health. And I think there's way more that we can do and that the social media companies can do.
For sure.
To input more regulations so that people are protected and supported in the way that I think they need to be, because, you know, I'm a realist. I don't think social media is going to disappear tomorrow. I think, you know, it's not going anywhere, but we all need to learn how to navigate it in the healthiest way possible. And I think some of that comes from, like, one of the things that I find really challenging with social media is like, when it comes to trolling and things like that, you know, people forget that no one's forcing you to follow anyone. Like, there's not a gun to your head being like, you must follow Alice Living.
Yeah, exactly. You
know?
can choose to unfollow at any time.
Yeah, so if someone has an issue with what I do and they feel the need to message me about that, I'm like, why would you just unfollow me? Like, is it like, unless I've done something awful, obviously. But yeah, I find that really crazy. Like, we all have autonomy over what we consume on social media. And so I think understanding that better and realizing that you control what you consume. So, you know, if something's annoying you or upsetting you, just mute it or unfollow it.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, that's one of the ways in which I'm trying to use social media better now.
And you spoke about that recently on a post, and it's actually awful to hear. I remember the post, you wrote quite a long caption on it, and it was basically about how people had been commenting on your pictures, asking if you'd stop training, asking if you're pregnant or saying you look pregnant. And I'm like, that is horrific.
Yeah.
It's actually horrific. Like, how do you cope with those comments? Like, what?
Yeah. I think in general, like, if anyone says anything difficult to you or something that you feel offended by, you can either go one of two ways. Like, I could take it personally, and you know, sometimes I do. And there are days when you'll get me on a bad day, and I'll be like,
you're only human.
Yeah, and I'll be like, oh my God, like, I feel terrible. I want to go and eat a human-sized packet of biscuits. But also, you can get me on a good day where I'm really able to laugh it off. And I think, like, unfortunately, like, you just kind of have to, at the moment, manage those days as best as you can, because it still happens. And yes, it's upsetting, and yes, it can be really difficult sometimes, but besides like blocking them and you know, doing all the things that I can do within my power, I can't really stop these people. So just learning to deal with it the best way that I can, which is, you know, remembering that I have a life outside of social media. Definitely. I think in that year that I was telling you about where I was so lonely, I remember that, like, it was when I got so into social media that I felt as though I was having true human connection by like having conversation with people online. And actually, like, that was so wrong. And I realised that, like, all I wanted really was just someone to talk to. Like, when I moved in with my boyfriend, now every day when he comes home, I'm like, let's talk. Right, what can we talk about? Because I'm like so desperate to have a conversation with someone, and I'm such a chatty person anyway, as you can probably tell. So my answer's really long.
Love a chatty person. I love a chatty person.
But like, I just realised that social media will never replace that deep human connection. Yeah. And so now, like, if ever I have a bad day on social media, or I get, you know, awful things sent to me or whatever, I just remember that there's a whole life outside of that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And an interesting question, if any of those people that have ever left bad comments were listening now, what would you say to them?
Oh God, that's really hard. I think sometimes, like, the way that I manage trolls or people that are nasty is I try and kill it with kindness, because I think often if someone's going to put bad energy out into the world, they've obviously got bad energy within them. And I think a happy person doesn't feel the need to project anger or hatred towards other people. Yeah. So if anything, actually, I'd just be like, are you okay? Because if you feel the need to project your insecurities or anger onto me, there's obviously something going on there that's deeper than probably what you or I would see. So I would actually just say, are you okay? And like, I guess what would make you feel the need to say that to someone.
Yeah. So your social media must be obviously a huge part of your life. Do you have any help now so that you can have some time away from it now and again?
No, well, sort of. So, no, yes. So I do all my social media myself.
Wow.
But then I have like management, which obviously help with brand partnerships and things like that. And I have a PA who is like my lifesaver, who helps me with organising my event series. So I run an event series called Living Well Events, and they're basically educational evenings where you can learn about loads of different things within the health and wellness sphere. So last one we did was on pelvic health, so working your pelvic floor.
Yeah.
And then the one before that, we had a gut health specialist. We had a guy called Dr. Joshua Woolrich who talks about all sorts of stuff. So yeah, they're really varied, but she helps me organise those. So that's the only help I have.
And where can we go to these events? Like, how do we find out about them?
Well,
I'd love to come to
funny
one.
You should
Come on, let's find out.
So they're always in London. Unfortunately, I would love to bring them out of London, and hopefully I will one day. But yeah, they're in London and they take place once a month. And I always put tickets up on my social media. So yeah, you can get tickets.
So that's how we can get tickets. Yeah. Well, we might just surprise you one day. You never
Oh,
know. It
I'd
might just be in the
love that.
audience.
I'd love to come to Manchester though. That's the thing.
Well, if you ever are, let us know.
I know.
Because I'm sure we'll be there to support you, definitely.
Amazing.
And you've created a second Instagram. I think it's your second Instagram, Living Alice, which is your separate Instagram to the main
it's not
page.
even anything special. It's literally just where I can post stuff that I don't really care about as much. I think because when you build a social media platform, you start to care so much more about like what makes the gram.
Yeah.
It sounds really silly, but obviously I have my video content, which is always my workout videos. But then in terms of like the photography stuff that I will put up, I always want to try and make it sort of thematic.
Yeah.
Which sounds so bougie, but it does really help, and it means that like I can keep it more professional. And then my second page was because I got to the point where like I had really nice photos with my friends and I wanted to be able to share those, but also I wanted to be able to see what my friends were doing because I follow so many people from my business account. I couldn't really see what my proper friends were doing and what they were up to, and I felt like I was missing out on watching their stories and stuff. So I made that more so that I could, because I only follow like 110 people on my other one, so it just means that it's like a really select group of people that I want to see what they're up to, and it does make a big difference having them separated, because it means that like if I'm away or I'm having a break from my main account, I can just use that one to see what my actual friends are up to.
Nice. So it's a bit like two separate little lives there, really. Your business and then you, Alice is Alice.
Exactly.
Alice is Alice. And so your social media, obviously you've been so successful, but did you ever imagine that your social media and kind of your journey would ever take you to be a women's health columnist?
No, and also like it's been such a varied journey. Like I've done so many different things, and so no, I never expected any of this. And also, like I was saying earlier, you know, where I started when social media was still in its infancy, so all of the things that are possible now weren't really possible then. So you couldn't really make money from it, and you couldn't really, you know, do brand partnerships and things. That just wasn't really happening. Whereas now it's a whole industry, and it's grown and expanded so much and become so diverse. So no, I never expected it, but it has been a real kind of learning experience, and I have had to learn along the way because all of these new things keep getting built in, like IGTV and Instagram stories and stuff, which they never had at the beginning. So I've had to kind of learn on the job in a way. But yeah, it's been a really fun experience, and I always say to people, like, if I didn't enjoy what I was doing, I wouldn't be doing it. Like there are parts that are difficult and challenging sometimes, but ultimately I love what I do, and that's why I continue with it.
And that's why you're so good at it.
Definitely. I hope so.
Definitely. And you've also established yourself as a Women's Aid ambassador. I hope I'm saying that right.
You are.
What does that mean to you?
So Women's Aid is a domestic abuse charity, and they are based, they're actually UK-wide, but they support women who have been in abusive relationships or to try and get out of abusive relationships, and to provide sort of the aftercare as well if women do leave relationships that are abusive, be that mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. So as an ambassador for them, I guess it came about because of my own experience when I was younger, of being in an abusive relationship. And I felt that with my platform, for example, with it being about Alice Living now and being more about me and my life rather than just the food or the exercise, I felt that I had a really exciting opportunity to be able to support a charity that I felt was really close to my heart and relevant to what I wanted to do. And so I reached out to Women's Aid, and I ended up doing like going to visit the charity a lot. I mean, they are amazing with what they do, and they support and save so many lives. And so, yeah, after visiting them, I did some stuff for them. I ran the half marathon for them last year, the Royal Parks half marathon. And then they asked me to be an ambassador. So I guess within my role, I don't really have a specific role as such, but I would say that what I want to achieve with it is to raise awareness, and particularly about healthy relationships in young people. So I was only 16 when I was in an abusive relationship, and you would never really think that someone that age would be in a relationship like that. And so for a lot of the people, I think it's really important to educate, especially young kids and people that are going into their first relationships, what constitutes a healthy relationship. I think that's really important, and something that I guess is probably slightly being missed out at schools, is what's right, what's wrong, particularly with the kind of the rise of social media. That kind of controlling behaviour can seep into all areas of your life. And so knowing that, you know, if someone's constantly checking your phone or having access to your social media, that's actually a pretty controlling behaviour and a pretty controlling trait, and that can escalate. So I try and kind of raise awareness around that, but also just, I guess they just need funding more than anything. They really, as with many charities that are kind of smaller charities, they just lack the funding that they need to be able to keep the services that they've got going. Their Women's Aid helpline was basically almost down, and it was going to be down for like 6 months, until actually Mel B has did a partnership and managed to save it. But they're having to make people redundant that have worked there for like 20 years. So it's a really tough time within all charities. But yeah, I've seen it with them particularly, that they're really struggling for funds. So if I can do any sort of, I really want to try and do a big challenge next year. I don't know what I want to do. I thought maybe, I was like, one of my friends suggested to swim the channel, and I was like, that is like, that's almost a bit too, I was like, oh my God, okay, I kind of want to, but also the thought of doing that just makes me feel ill.
Are you into swimming?
I mean, I'm not that good, but...
I think she is. I think she's being modest there.
But I think maybe I would like to do like a triathlon or something that's like really challenging and goes outside of my skill set. So I do want to try and do something this year. But if you've got any ideas, let me know.
If anyone's got any ideas, let us know in the comments of the podcast, honestly, in the review section, and let's see, you know, what comes back, and we'll let you know.
Throw them at me.
And then we'll be excited to see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think it's amazing that you promote body positivity, and you're so strong, and, you know, you show this message on your Instagram and through your social media and your channels to your audience. And I think that's really important, that you help women feel so strong. Do you think women are now respected more in the fitness industry and the lifestyle industry?
Oh, yes, I do. That's not to say that, I mean, for example, I think we've come a long, long way since even 4 years ago when I first started working in the fitness industry. I think we have come a long way, and I think there are many women that I look up to and that I respect within the industry. But I think as a whole, it's still quite a heavily male-dominated environment. There have been times where I've been made to feel pretty insecure and belittled by men within the same industry as me. And I think it's a really difficult one, and I think it will still take time. Like we're still fighting for that level of equality that I think we need, and I don't think we're there yet, but I think it has come a long way. You know, if I think back to when I would use the gym 4 years ago to now, the amount of women I see now in the weight section, the amount of women I see now even just going to the gym, the amount of female trainers out there, I think we are definitely on the up, but I think, have we reached total equality yet? I'm not so sure.
And what can we do? What do you think can be done to get us there?
I wish I had the magic answer. Yeah, I wish I had a really succinct answer of if we do these things. I think, you know, for me, it's about supporting voices online that are female. I think they don't necessarily get sometimes the credit they deserve, and I'm talking like really credible people who have worked in the fitness industry for years and years. There's a woman called Jocelyn Thompson. There's loads of people in America that I follow that I think are great. Nikki Bird, there's so many great women who I think are like the pinnacle of what I want to achieve in my career. Both with education and their career as well. And so I think trying to raise those voices is really important. But also to I guess just continue doing what I'm doing, because the more good that I can put out as a woman in this industry, I think the more you kind of carve the path for others that are coming through.
Isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I feel really positive that I'm making my mark on the fitness industry.
You definitely are.
Yeah.
And to anybody who's scared to go into the gym, any young girls listening, or any females, or anyone listening right now, what would you say to them if they are scared to go into the gym, particularly in the weight section? So let's say for a female, what would you say to them?
I think it's a really interesting one, because I absolutely understand that it can be a really intimidating space. And I think for anyone that is scared, I would always say to start small. Maybe you could get a couple of weights and start at home. I think with the access to the internet now, we are so lucky and so inundated with inspiration and motivation and actual videos that you can do from online. So even if you just start at your, within the comfort of your own home, so that you can get your head around different movements and how you would do that before transferring into the gym, then I think that's a great place to start. I would also say that classes are great. If you want just the best way to sort of get into the gym first and get confidence within that, trying a few classes can be really helpful to just kind of get your head around how to structure a program, particularly weights focused classes. I know Virgin Active have a couple, the gym where I work has some, and I'm sure that Pure Gym and wherever's have the equivalent. So something that's weights focused, so that you can learn how to get your head around basic movements like your squats, deadlifts, presses, pulls, would be really helpful, so that you feel a little bit more confident. And also, like, I think, I totally understand that this is budget allowing, but if you can even have like one PT session where you just talk through the basics, I think it can really help to lay the foundations of a solid kind of program, and give you confidence that that next time you go into the gym, you kind of know what you're doing and what stuff does as well. Because I think the biggest fear for people is, what the hell does that do? Like, how do I use that? So I think even
what if I'm not doing it right?
Yeah, I think even if you can just have one or two sessions where you're shown how to use the equipment and how to kind of structure a basic session, that can be really helpful, and then you can kind of piece onto that as you grow in confidence. And then the final thing would be to go with someone that's maybe a bit more experienced than you are. Like, if you want to train with a friend, if you can reach out to someone that's maybe a little bit more experienced than you and can kind of show you the ropes. I see so many people doing that, particularly women actually at the gym, like training together, and one of them kind of showing the other. So I think that's really helpful, and it can be a social thing as well, which makes it really nice and kind of removes any of that intimidation that you might feel. So yeah, those are my kind of top tips.
Okay. And big question now, and it's going to be a hard question, because you've done a lot. Like I say, you're 26 years old and you have achieved such a huge amount. It's actually crazy. It's incredible. But what has been your biggest achievement to date?
Oh, that is a really tough question.
Is there one?
I'm really proud of lots of things. I think, particularly like a lot of the work that I've done for the charity, I think has been something that I am really proud of. But actually, I think it's something that you touched on just now, which is like representation of women in the fitness industry has been pretty poor up until now. And the fact that I have been on the cover of Women's Health and been, a voice within that space, and a loud one at that, for a couple of years as a young woman, I think is actually really empowering, and means that there are many, many women underneath me who are coming up, who now have the confidence and the kind of ability to see someone that's able, that has done it. So I think to carve a path for women that want to go into the fitness industry, that want to get involved, I think is probably something that I am most proud of. And I think it's something, like, when you say I want to like leave a legacy, and I think it is a bit cheesy, but I think if I were to say what mine would be, it would be, I hope I've opened many doors for girls that are at school and thinking, I want to go and do something, go and work in, it's a great industry to work in. And also, more than anything, ultimately, I think I've just shown with a bit of hard work and like, I don't know, like, I've never followed like the done path. So I never went to university. I never followed like the way that most people feel as though they should do life. So I think, if anything, like, I know this is going to sound so cheesy, so I'm like debating whether I should say it, but like, I did follow my dreams, and I think that sounds really cringy.
I do not think that sounds cringy at all. I actually really don't.
But I did, and I did it because I really, really wanted it, rather than listening to what anyone else was saying. And I think that's a really important lesson. So yeah, if my legacy were anything, it would be to do that.
I think that was a lovely answer. So selfless. And I mean, you are doing absolutely incredible. You've got me emotional. I can't even speak. That was a lovely answer. I think it was so selfless, and you are doing incredibly well, and you are definitely carving a lovely path for young girls and anyone following in your footsteps. So congratulations to you. Now, one last question before we end the podcast here.
Go for it.
if you are ever having a down day or a day where you don't want to get out of bed or you just don't have that motivation, what do you tell yourself? Is there a mantra you live by at all?
I do have one mantra that I always tell myself, which it's never a failure, always a lesson. Might not work when I'm in bed and I'm like, don't want to get out of bed. But in general, like if I've ever made a mistake or I've done something, like I never try and see it as a failure. I'm very much like a glass half full kind of person in the way that I look at life. So if I've ever done something wrong or if something hasn't gone my way, to look at it and say, well, what can I learn from that? What can I take from that that's a positive, rather than looking at the negative? So yeah, if I'm in bed and I don't want to get out of bed, I'll be like, right, well, I clearly need this rest.
That's it. Allow yourself.
And tomorrow is a new day.
Oh, that was such a lovely way to end the podcast, Alice. It's been absolutely amazing getting to know you today. You're such an incredible woman, and honestly, I'm so happy to have met you. And I hope that everybody's enjoyed listening to this podcast. If you have enjoyed listening to the podcast, make sure that you leave us a review and let us know. What did they need to let us know? What was the thing that we said?
To let us know what I can do as my challenge.
Yeah, let us know what you think Alice should do as a challenge, and I can't wait to see, what you go through with. So I'm going to be watching. I'm ready, and we might even be there in the crowd. Who knows? Whatever it's going to be. So thank you to everybody for listening. This has been PLT Behind Closed Doors with Alice Living, and it's been amazing getting to know you. So thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Hopefully we'll see you again soon.
I hope so.
Thank you so much. Bye.